Hi, I'm Dr. Simon Carlin. Welcome back. I just wanted to run you through a movement and stability assessment, and Emily here has volunteered her body to science, which is very generous of her. Thank you, Emily.
You're welcome.
For doing that. So I just wanted to just briefly talk you through what we do in a movement and stability assessment. First thing we want to do is check and see how stable we are. That is, are we stuck in one position or another? Are we falling forward? Are we falling sideways? And then we check and see, are you actually standing in a neutral position, or are you actually pulling into a twist one way or the other? We call it a gait fault, and so it's kind of like you're moving forward into a step position. So we'll test you to see whether or not you're stuck on one side or the other. In other words, if you're stuck in this position, then your arm will be weak and it will need to move you forward into a step the other way to get you stable. The key is we're looking to see, are you distorting into a rotational pattern, or are you starting to fall forward, or are you unstable going sideways? All of those things will affect how efficient your movement is and how likely you are to be able to stabilise against force against you, particularly if you're playing a sport or you're a dancer for that matter, where you're moving through the air, having to recover from your last move. So they're the first things we kind of look for when you're standing. And when you're not standing, we're going to go have a lie on your back there, Emily, thank you. What we're going to do is just get Emily on her back, and we're going to run a couple of tests on her to see whether or not her front muscle systems, the muscles that bend your body forward or flex you, versus the back muscle systems are actually operating normally. Now normally if we test things, they should be able to turn on. So lift your head up there, Emily, and just see if you can hold your head on. Now at the moment she's looking pretty good, rest back. But what can happen often, particularly if you're playing contact sport or a velocity sport, can be even soccer and netball and those sort of games, is that if you've been injured in your spinal system or centrally or in your head, then what often happens is the flexor muscle system, the front muscles are turned down. So hold your head up, and this would be weak. And then if we checked, say, into the abdominal muscle system, come up into a sit-up for me, try and hold yourself up, and then it'll let go again. And so we know that while the whole front of your trunk isn't really that stable, and therefore if you start to put it under load, that you might end up injuring yourself or be predisposed to injury. Now the other thing that happens when you don't have this lock forward, or the ability to lock forward, is often the hips are unstable, and then if the hips are unstable, usually the knees unstable, and we may also have weakness in our muscle chains all the way through to your ankle. So these tests are key to identify, look, are you actually able to stabilise your spine and trunk and your hips and knees and ankles when you're moving at velocity. The last thing we like to do is just check and see how strong the hips are in each direction. And Emily's quite good on both of those tests, but essentially if you've got any pattern where you're rotating, any pattern where you're falling forward, any pattern where you're going sideways, any pattern where the flexor muscles, what we call flexor inhibition, is turned off, then it's quite possible that you've already injured yourself. And that's with most of the athletes we see, we're really tidying up injuries that are already there and sorting out distortion patterns, imbalances, and these muscle chain events that tell us that there's been an injury previously that they haven't recovered from yet. So they're the key elements to your movement and stability assessment. I guarantee you that the majority of athletes in the world today aren't getting these tests done before they get out on the track, before they start dancing. They may be having recurrent injuries that they just can't get over. And a lot of the problems are within this set of faults that we've talked about today. So if you haven't had a movement and stability assessment, I think it's really important that if you want to be at the top of your game, at the top of your sport, that you get a movement and stability assessment as soon as possible. We look forward to seeing you.